Welcome everyone to Coffee with the Kingpins. I'm so excited to have my good friend Anya, and we're going to be interviewing today, and we're going to be sharing some very, very interesting subjects. So, welcome to Coffee with the Kingpins, Firuze Vedic Compatibility. And if you do enjoy our content, please share with friends and family, and also subscribe and like and comment because that goes a long way and that gives me more visibility to share more interesting subjects with you. So, Anya, so welcome. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. It's always very, very interesting to sort of delve into different individuals and their interests and their background and all those wonderful things. So I wanted to, first of all, ask you, you are in the midst of writing a book. What is that book about?
Well, it started a little over a year ago when I saw a movie about Amy Winehouse, and it kind of hit me in a way of just diving into her life and seeing a lot of the parallels between the woundings in her life. Not that I lived her life, a famous artist and all this stuff, like, but going into the woundings that we have, that she had, because she's a public figure. It's sometimes easier to study public figures, and really it's like an archetype, and to really and there is a lot out on her as far as books published, and videos, and just a lot of information out there. So, and I, as an artist, I do collage art, and when I do an art piece, I do go deep into it. So I thought I was actually going to just be making an art piece, and I was just getting messages from spirit, and spirit just said, you need to write a book. So it wasn't something that I had in my mind of writing a book, or feel like, I studied to write a book or anything like that. It was not in my radar, but it was a very clear message, and they weren't leaving me alone. Like, and they just kept giving me all this information. I had to write it down and put it together, and just kind of let it unfold. I didn't know where it was going. Um, but it was a year-long journey, a little bit over a year of, studying these woundings that she had, and that all we all share, some to different degrees than others, maybe some not as much, whatever. So, really diving deep into these woundings that we have, and within myself, that I've experienced, going into dark nights, that and coming out of things, and then how I came out of it, and the practices that I have incorporated and created and made up and adapted, and all these different things to help support a healing journey of going from darkness to light. Yeah, so that's been the journey, and it's been really, I'm really touched by how it touched me. And I have made a couple copies of it and have some friends reading it right now. So I'm just interested in how it's going to touch other people.
Well,
And we'll
I
see.
hope that you share it with me. I would love to read it. I would love
Okay,
to read it.
well,
Yeah.
then that will be.
So this takes me to your background. Tell us a little bit about what really pushed you to go and study psychology and become a therapist.
Yeah, well, it was actually a long time ago. I graduated as a business major undergrad, and I went out into the business world, and I just, as a human being, I was getting really, I wasn't whole. I wasn't healthy, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And I knew, like, I was dying inside. I mean, the only thing I had on my side was I was in my 20s, so, you have the youth, the energy of youth to keep you going. But I knew that I was really struggling inside. and I wasn't really able to make it in the world. I was just so I needed to fix myself somehow. I was just like, I need to understand why I'm this way, and
Right.
struggling with eating disorders and just unhealthy relationships with myself and others, and just the whole thing. So um I went back to get a master's degree in counseling. I did end up completing that degree, but it took a while because, again, life kept getting in my way. But I was determined to complete it, and I did. But it took 11 years on and off. And during that time, I had family and a daughter, and so there was times I had to stop and start again. And in the midst of it all, I became a yoga teacher, and fortunately, yoga really saved my life, and I share about that in the book. And my yoga career took off. So I just became very busy as a yoga teacher, and I was doing internships, and I got a paid internship working in a school. And it didn't really align with my beliefs. And But the yoga world, felt more like that was my path than being a traditional like therapist in an institution or something like that. Because I worked in a school, and I also worked in a association where therapists were, family counseling and such. So yoga took over, and I was a full-time yoga teacher for like 20 years.
Let's
That
go back actually
Mhm.
to when you realized, you wanted to find out why you have these issues and this darkness.
Mhm.
Your childhood growing up.
Yeah. It was challenging, and I'm really careful. Like in the book, I don't really go into too much on that because I don't want to start. In fact, there's part I excerpt about reparenting, and there's a little there's short chapters which I love reading. Like, I mean, I wrote a book the way I would want to read one,
Right.
so I don't have like long, like, there's no fluff. It's just to the point. And there is a short chapter on reparenting, and I wrote, at some point, if you're blaming, somebody else for your issues, like your mother and father, which I have done, and you'll want to stop, it's not about pointing figures, but there's a lot of dysfunction in.
Well, it's about your childhood traumas that really,
Yeah,
I mean, if you
absolutely.
look
Yeah.
back,
And it's not just my childhood
yeah,
traumas, the childhood traumas of my mother, and specifically, my mother came in with a lot of trauma.
right.
Yeah.
I
So,
think, not to blame anyone, but
yeah.
I really feel, and I think for this interview as well, I really feel that it's important to touch on it because
Mhm.
that is what kind of created those traumas and
Mhm.
those results that eventually got you to the point of, I need to do something about this because otherwise I'm going to explode, die, uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
swallowed in deep into the depth of earth. So I think it would be nice to touch upon it slightly.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
as a child, did you feel, because I remember myself as I think a 3-year-old possibly, because I remember I was still in the crib. And I remember I was under my crib crying and saying to my parents, "You're not my parents." And I had taken a fork. And I don't know if I even knew. I had taken a fork and I was putting it in the electric plug, which kind of threw me, you know, out. But I was screaming, my parents, I want to go home. I want to go home. And, when I look back to the journey of me, being 6 years old, 7 years old, and then, I was sent away to boarding school at the age of 8.5. And it was a horrendous experience because I desperately missed my mother. But and I'm actually writing a book about it's a semi-biographical because all this kind of leads to the Iranian Revolution. And everyone that I speak with, they all say, "Oh my God, you should definitely like write it because so many people, especially the younger generation, have no idea what Iran was before, the Islamic Republic." But in any case, this is a long story. But what I'm trying to ask you is, the experiences, whether it was something that happened to you or whether it was just an innate feeling that there was something off, or, because we um, are both very spiritual, and, spiritual is a big word that's used in many different ways, but we both believe that we've had other lives, and I believe that we bring some traumas also from a past life that we
Absolutely.
don't understand, So anyway, yes, going
There's
back.
a lot going on. Yeah, it's hard to, there's a lot going on. Could it be from my past life, my ancestors, this life? There's a lot going on, and um,
What were some of the things that
mhm,
really come up for you about your childhood that you think triggered these things?
mhm. Well, I think ultimately I had really low self-esteem. I think I had a lot of suppressed fear.
Mhm.
Um, and in that sense, like when I say suppressed fear, it was suppressed, and then I would act like it wasn't there, go to be tough or go do something, whatever. But I think if I really had sat with myself, there was a lot of and depression, not being, and I think that all came from not really having outlets for expression and creativity. And that's why today, that's the most important thing to me, is to be able to be creative, do art, do music, dance, sound healing, even fairy hair, whatever it is. Like, that's my favorite place to be, is in a creative space. I mean, even writing that book, which I would, if you had asked me before I wrote this book, I would think that would be so like not fun to sit at a computer and write. Like, I'm an active person, like that would, but it was really an interesting evolution. Like, I actually enjoyed the creativeness of writing, which I never thought I would, because I'm more of a like physical person. I like doing things. But
So it was cathartic, really.
oh, definitely. I look back. I didn't think it was going to be, because I thought it would be cathartic, but I didn't know it was going to be as cathartic as it was. And in many ways. But I think that looking back in my childhood, the fear of being in my home really stunted me, and not having an outlet for creativity and an outlet for expressing myself really stunted me. And I had a lot of, and because of that, I was depressed. And I also wasn't eating properly. I mean, I didn't feel worthy of that, I was even worthy of nourishing myself. So that's like a big message in the book, that like we are so worthy of nourishing our physical being, and all these programs that think we got to diet, or we got to count calories, or we got to I mean, not that I go into that, but I go into the fact that, like, I am here, you are here, whoever's reading is here, and we're worthy of taking in nourishment. And so much of my life, I felt like I needed to starve. And if I was starving, I was a good person, like I was doing good that day. Um, and I struggled with, I mean, this was many, many years ago, but struggled with an eating disorder. And so all those things, you don't realize that if you're not a nourished being, if you're not taking in nourishment, like your brain isn't functioning, you can't think clearly. Um, and that can even be diagnosed as depression, anxiety, all these different things from just not being nourished, which makes complete sense. Um,
Right.
so I think that there was just a lot of things that were going on simultaneously that weren't really allowing me to be my full potential of who I was. And that was really bothering my soul. And it was eating away at me year after year after year. And then, surrounding myself with people that also did not support me and want to see me in, at least I felt, but maybe I created that, I mean, obviously we do create our reality. So going deeper into like, why we choose the people we choose in our lives, because fear of abandonment. And, it starts with the father abandonment wound. And that's, and that, one of the things that I came to writing the book was that we abandon ourselves because we have this fear of being abandoned by somebody else. Like it's easier to abandon my own being than have another person abandon me, to feel that wound reawaken.
Right.
Um,
It's
so
also really interesting because I think the universe also sometimes puts you, with people that can really trigger you because I always say, you don't evolve living a comfortable life. We've all gone through certain, you know, not
true.
very nice experiences that have pushed us to evolve or to search to see how can I get to feel better or more peaceful or, you know, so I think yeah, the universe triggers you, and then, again, going back to reincarnation, you have had other lives, you come with certain um problems that wasn't solved, and then probably you also have to balance certain karma with certain people that maybe they didn't treat you well or you didn't treat them well. So it's like a collage of
Yes.
situations. So, and what I wanted to also talk to you, because this is really interesting, and like you said, it's really cathartic. And so, going through your journey of clearing and cleaning, this is also part of your journey, but also part of your service to help others because a lot of people feel ashamed. I mean, you know, there are a lot of people who don't even, they feel ashamed to go and see a therapist, you know. And so this is a way of opening a door, I feel, to so many different people that can
Thank you for saying that.
experience that I'm not alone. There are other people like me. And so, and there is nothing wrong. There's nothing to be ashamed of. um, what happened in the past. It's like I just recently posted on Instagram about a butterfly that, becomes a butterfly from the cocoon.
Caterpillar. Yeah, yeah.
And
Actually, I made an art piece on that, and
yeah,
I'm thinking about putting it in the book.
and
Yeah.
it doesn't feel
That's
ashamed
gorgeous.
of
Yeah.
being being a
It
caterpillar.
doesn't. Well, part of that thing comes from Be Here Now, which I do. Ram Dass has been a big teacher to me, and I've spent time with him, and I created artwork from that book, and the whole idea of the caterpillar, the metamorphosis of the caterpillar turning into a butterfly is the caterpillar doesn't even know it's a caterpillar, and the
Right.
caterpillar doesn't even know it's turning into a butterfly. It's like letting go of
Yeah.
who we think we are, right? And letting the transformation metamorphosis happen. But it's so true. And
So
I do
what?
like what you said about, helping others. It's always been for me
Yeah.
about, helping myself and being able to help others.
Yeah.
My life has been of service. And yeah, and to realize that we are not alone. And when I realized that Amy and I, and the woundings are, the father abandonment wound, and she had bulimia, and then she married somebody who used drugs, and she started using drugs with him, and that marriage ended, and then she went through a process of reclaiming herself and getting sober with the drugs and all of that, and then she got breast implants, and that order, I had the same order in my life. I went through the same thing.
Right.
So my father left when I was 15. I became bulimic at 15. I did end up marrying somebody who used drugs, and the relationship ended. And then I got breast implants, and I got 10 years later, I got, well, it was more than 10 years later, but like 15 years later. It's a whole other story, this whole chapter on breast implants, but I got very sick from the breast implants. And writing that chapter was something I wanted to write for a very long time about breast implants and plastic surgery, and so yeah, so I figured, well, if she went through that, I went through that. How many in the same order? Like how many other women, maybe not exactly the same order,
But
and
parallels.
parallels, and then I'm teaching this course at Prana, the gift of womanhood, and the teacher Guru Ratana, who put that course together, right from the beginning talks about the father abandonment wound, and she says, that we all experience it to some degree. Even if you had a father in your life, and uh, one day he just didn't go to your dance recital, or he was working, or you just felt like he chose something over you. I mean, obviously many of us come from divorced families, or the something happens that the actual father does leave, but it doesn't even have to be that we as a collective experience these wounds, and finding the way back home to ourselves, healing from these wounds, and that it is a collective. All these wounds that we experience as women or men, I mean, men have their own woundings, which I've been looking into a little bit to have some more compassion for men, and understanding the woundings that they have, but
But
that
children, regardless of whether they're a boy or a girl, while they're growing up, they need both their mother and father. So yes, there are lots of father wounding,
mother, yeah, oh,
your
it's there,
dads as well. Yeah, absolutely.
and to recognize it, and to heal from it, so putting it out there and realizing that it is a collective, and I teach that in that class and in all classes, as we heal ourselves, we're healing the world. I mean, it's all we can. I mean, we can do other things, but let's start there.
Right. Right. Did you ever do any form of life regression?
Like past life regression,
Right.
I have here and
Yeah.
there, not
Yeah.
recently, but I have over the years. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been on this healing journey for a long time, so.
Yeah. I think that is a key factor. I mean, it helped me tremendously. It was like the quickest form of therapy for me. So yeah, that's really important. So, you know, I really wanted to delve in because we're going through a really, really important period in the evolution of humanity. And I feel that there are a lot of people waking up. And I also believe wholeheartedly that, each of us that have reincarnated on this planet, we have a mission, we have a contract, and each of us have, different missions as far as how we can be a service to the whole, and I mean that's one of the reasons I do these podcasts. I mean, I do different subjects. I also focus on compatibility because I feel right now there's so many people that have problems, living a transformative, a healthy, relationship with a partner. So,
Mhm.
I feel that is something that, I was called to do. But what I felt that was really important, and the reason for all these questions was how would you look at your spiritual growth and what do you call spirituality? Because, like I said, it's a word that's been overly used in so many ways. Some people understand it as being, if you say, are you spiritual, as religious? But
Yeah.
I look at it in a different way. Um, but how do you see the course up to now, the course of your life up to now, and how you have evolved spiritually? And when did you feel? that you were more interested in spirituality, and how did that help you evolve as a human being?
Thank you. Well, I think I always was a little interested in spirituality, even from a young girl, because my family, my mother and father came from different religions. So I didn't grow, I had dabbled in each religion, but I didn't go to like Catholic school or Hebrew school. Like I didn't, so I would watch all my other friends like do their own thing. And of course, at that time, you would think about not necessarily spirituality, but your relationship with God. You found it through your religion. And I didn't have that.
Hmm.
So I felt a little displaced, and I guess for me, I had to go find it within.
Hmm.
And
And
um,
that's where it is.
and that's where it is. So I know, but it wasn't easy. But well, I mean, it's not that it wasn't easy, but it was just, it took time. And so that's where, because even if I did go to a temple, a service at a religious place, I would enjoy it. I enjoyed the music, but I always felt like an outsider. So I didn't feel like that was my home. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but it didn't feel like that was where I was going to settle into. And so it was my own quest, and I felt for so many years I was looking outside of myself, even through yoga, going to trainings and workshops and teacher trainings and being a seeker. I spent a lot of those years teaching yoga as a seeker, which I think was fine then, because it really brought different experiences back to my classes and such. But the evolution is now I don't really feel so much as a seeker. I feel like I
You have
am.
arrived.
Well, I mean, it's constant work, but it's like, that when I say it's a discipline, I realize for me, and, like what you said before, like everybody has to find their own way. And I realize like my way, I'm not preaching it as the way. Everybody has to find their way. But in my life, it doesn't feel like I live a disciplined life, but somebody looking from the outside might look like it's disciplined, with different practices and things that I do. And and for me, it's helped me, one, regulate my nervous system, which I realized I, even in those years of teaching yoga and running to this studio and that studio, was kind of enforcing that my nervous system was not regulated, and coming from my childhood. So I would say in the last decade has been about trying to, which has taken a long time for me to somewhat regulate my nervous system and to stay calm and relaxed, and not to be on high alert.
Right.
So that's a big part of my practice. I think feeling grounded and centered, having patience. For me, my connection is listening to spirit and really, and having patience. Because for me, for some reason, I only get like one message at a time. Like people want to say, oh, what should you be, this, and this in the future. And I'm like, oh, I only really get one message at a time. So I don't have a future plan. It's just like, just trying to hear, what is my next message? What do I need to do next?
Hmm.
And to really listen and to create, you know, and part of it is writing in this book, and I got that message, is about creating a relationship with your spirit guides and your angels, or whatever you want to call them, your higher power, God, creator, but trusting in those messages and being able to really listen and sit. And I think I've been so much of a runner my whole life that I didn't listen, to those messages. And usually we're looking for something outside of ourselves or somewhere else, but the answers really are when we get quiet and sit still. For me, that's what I found.
And reach within. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Meditation really,
And
really.
surrender into that, to realize that, what I want, like letting go of what I want and really listening to what spirit has in mind.
So, as a teacher, what would you say as far as because you obviously deal with a lot of people, what do you see as far as people getting in touch with spirituality, or what's your experience as far as
Well, I think that it's a journey and you have to accept people where they're at, and hold space for them where they're at. And I remember Ram Dass, like I said, I was a big Ram Dass person for many, many years. I just listened to Ram Dass and then I had the opportunity to go stay with him. And one of the things that he said when he would go talk to people as a spiritual counselor, or he said he was not a guru, he was a teacher, was that there's nothing in me pulling them out of it and there's nothing in me keeping them in it.
but do
You
you
know?
know that guru in Indian means a teacher?
Yeah, I know. Well, he described it as a guru is I could see that, but he went into it in another way. Like his guru was an enlightened being. He was not an enlightened being.
Hmm.
He was a teacher. So a guru is somebody who takes somebody from darkness to light. And he thought of himself, being a professor of psychology and a teacher and a speaker. He didn't want to take on that role, but
Right.
it could be. A guru is somebody who helps people go from darkness
Well,
to.
the thing is that I think in America and in Europe, since they don't know the language, the Hindu language, I think it's a Hindu
Mhm.
or Sanskrit, they look at guru, someone who you put on pedestal that you worship. But
Yeah.
guru, it means
Right, means a teacher. And it is a teacher. There's definitely teachings in the, but yeah, so I think that's, getting back to the question that you asked about, just holding space for people, when they come where they're at. And
do you see though an evolution? Do you
I
see?
am, especially in that class, the gift of womanhood class, I'm really seeing it, and it's really awakening into these programs. A lot of what I wrote about, awaken into that these programs are running you, and how to awaken out of it.
Right.
Programs.
Yeah, I really feel I mean I sense and it's been confirmed with a bunch of people that there is, on a daily basis, there's more and more source light energy,
Mm.
source breath, and more people are waking up. And those that have really been pursuing enlightenment, or if you want to call it ascension, but growth, they have the ability to really kind of key into it. And what is happening is that we are actually manifesting the God-given gifts that we have, like telepathy and
Mm.
intuition and manifestation. And even though I think on the outside there's so many different how would I say, powers that are trying to create more chaos and more fear because they don't want humanity to touch into that. They want to create fear so that you can, lower your vibration, lower your frequency. And through that, they feed off. They feed off the human energy. So I feel that, what you do, what I do, I, in my business, I'm an esthetician, I do facials, but I'm constantly speaking to people. And, I always say my job or a hairdresser's job, we are, cheap therapists because we don't get paid for therapy, but people open up. And so, when people come and see you month after month, you have created a relationship, and they trust you and they open up. And I feel that, I have the ability to throw little nuggets here and there, or just sometimes listen, because sometimes people just need to talk and you don't need to say anything, but to release themselves. So, yeah, I think that's the service. So, that's why I wanted to really sort of delve in as far as because you also deal with many different people, like what is your 2 cents about what do you see on a daily basis as far as the people that you interact who come to your classes or who
Mhm.
take certain courses?
Right. Um, I, everybody is comes in, and I used to teach I mean, this was years ago, so it's times are changing. I mean, I can look back when I first started teaching yoga 25 years ago, and how we've grown as a culture and community in so many ways. But I used to teach a beginners class for 20 years. I taught it same morning, same beginners class, Monday at 9, and and people would stay in the class. It was a hatha yoga class, but why people come to yoga and why they stay, and people come for so many different reasons, but why they stay. And what I see, I mean, especially now teaching just Kundalini yoga in the community, it's such a different because I did for a long time teach both in New Jersey. I taught both Hatha and Kundalini yoga. So I came to realize the difference. It's complete. I mean, besides the fact that it's a completely different style of yoga, you're completely attracting different people. And they come and they stay for different reasons. And what I see in the classes that I'm teaching now is that they really come and bring themselves, like all of themselves,
Right.
and not just their physical body, that they're there just I'm going to just bring my physical body and just make my physical body less tight and tense. It's no, they are there and they're like ready, like give it to, like, I'm here for the practice, and surrendering into the practice, and letting go of themselves while they're there on the mat. And then some of them, their stuff does come up and they will talk about it, their frustrations and their concerns. But I just see that for now teaching Kundalini yoga, I feel like the students really, most of them do bring themselves to their mat,
Mm-hmm.
and their mind, their body, their soul. And and then the issues that arise, I mean, everybody, comes with, a different package. But I would say teaching the women's class, or, dealing with women, I mean, we have men too, but I guess it's just, feeling of wholeness. Like people just want to feel whole and at peace within themselves.
How would you say that Kundalini yoga differs from Hatha yoga, for example, or any other yoga?
Well, it's a Kriya yoga, and Kriya yoga, not that there isn't other Kriya yogas, but Kriya yoga is when um, a set is created. So I don't create the set, but it's put together scientifically and systematically to create a certain outcome. And there's thousands of Kriyas. So as you know, we can work on the chakras, systems of the body, the organs, the 10 bodies, awakening the 10 bodies. I mean, there's so many Kriyas to work from.
Taxation, prosperity.
Exactly. And there's mantras. So we do a lot of mantra work. There's more sitting involved. So for some people, that could be the challenging part.
Mhm.
Just being, sitting for an hour and a half. I mean, sometimes we stand in our kriyas, but a lot of times we're sitting. And for people, that could be very challenging, just to sit cross-legged for a while.
I
So
would say that one of the main things that's really, I would say, cathartic is the fact that most of the exercises are done with the eyes closed and the focus on the breath. So
yeah,
that naturally takes you in. And really, you don't have the opportunity to look at other people because it's not about competition. You do what you can, and the more you
absolutely.
do, the more flexible you become. So
And
the
I do
whole,
like that.
yeah,
I,
the whole
I
point
like,
of the focus going within, I feel
yeah.
it's very important. Important.
Yeah, versus, I was a hatha yoga student and teacher way before I became a Kundalini yoga student teacher. But yeah, at that point, you are looking at form and how to do a posture and looking at other people. And at the time, people could do amazing things with their body. And either, you like, I want to do that, or, maybe there was a little bit of jealousy or like competition comes up, but it enhances you to want to further your own ability to do these postures. But you get so caught up in it, it becomes more, an athletic kind of, it's more outer. And not saying that all of that doesn't help, strengthen the physical body and learn how to put things into alignment, and it's not interesting. But yes, then coming into the Kundalini yoga with the eyes closed and going within and softening, feeling strong and soft at the same time, and being with your breath and just really being with yourself. Like, how much are we really with ourselves these days?
Yeah, and I love the fact that we have the mantras, because that really is it,
Yeah, the music.
yeah, the music, yeah, it's
It's a
amazing. And the
beautiful
other part of
practice.
it, like you said, it's you never know what you're doing, because like you said, there are thousands and thousands of kriyas that you never get bored, and there's always something new to,
It is.
experience.
It is. It's a beautiful teaching. And it's yeah, it's it's a nice practice.
So what would you say, how would you direct someone who has never done yoga, who has never, who were so intertwined with the societal programming? How would you advise them when they come to you and say, I have this and I have that, and I'm going crazy? What would be the steps? And the reason I'm asking you is because apart from your experience with yoga, and specifically and especially Kundalini yoga, you also have an experience as a psychologist. So how would you guide?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, if somebody is interested in taking up yoga for whatever reason, if they anxiety, they're tight, this, that, whatever, um, find a yoga studio that's works for you, that you're going to make to, because if it's like, if it's hours, if it's not convenient, there's less chance you're going to go. And if you can find a beginner's class, you just might feel more comfortable. And I know for me, Kundalini yoga, every class is beginners and advanced. It's like you do what you can do. But if you're going into a hatha style class where people are doing lots of advanced postures, it might feel overwhelming for you. It might be good to learn the basics. Like, I think it is good to learn some basics, put an investment into yourself by learning the basics of yoga, of alignment, meditation, pranayama, breath work. It's a journey. Have patience with yourself. I think part of it is getting out of the mindset that, like, this is a quick fix. This is not a quick fix.
Right.
You might feel a lot better after one class, but it's a journey. I mean, you have to just, be present with where you're at. And I know when I came into yoga, I was in a lot of emotional pain, and it was really painful for me to go to class
Mm-hmm.
because I sat with myself. There was no music. I studied Anya younger yoga. I had really strict teachers. This was back, like, 30 years ago. But there was no music, and I really had to sit with myself, and it was really painful. But something just said, keep going. Just keep going.
Yeah. I remember when I started doing Kundalini yoga, and a long time ago, I was going through a divorce. And I think for the first year, every class I took, I would bawl my eyes out.
Yeah. Kundalini has a way of doing that. Like, Hatha yoga, I didn't have it. I would feel very sad in class.
Yeah.
And I would, but then when I went to my first Kundalini weekend, my first time I ever experienced Kundalini yoga was with Gurmukh up at Kripalu, and I bawled.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, that was really powerful. All those years of studying, Hatha yoga, I never cried, but now all of a sudden it just, so it is a fast track. So yeah, some people just do, some people are drawn right to Kundalini yoga and that's all that they do. Some like hatha yoga, there's so many different styles now of yoga out there. I would say just finding a class that feels right for you, a teacher that you enjoy being with, that you feel comfortable and safe with,
Yeah.
and and just be consistent with yourself, whatever that is. If it's once a week, twice a week, whatever you can do, and being patient with yourself and recognizing that, which I do write a thing up in the book about this, is like, let yoga do you. You just let it take over your, slowly, and it'll evolve slowly. You might realize your eating may change. You might want to do different things with your spare time. Just, you'll see how you evolve as your practice evolves.
Right. And I would definitely recommend daily meditation and uh, maybe, grounding in the morning, walking, maybe barefoot or standing
Yeah.
barefoot.
Yeah, I find that really lately. I've been gardening a lot and I just crave going outside in my yard barefoot. And so, like you said, yeah, simple things like that. But if somebody is so disconnected, um, simple things like that could really change their lives. But it has to evolve over time. But those are very good
Yeah.
tips on things. It's about just putting some habits or practices into your life that connect you with yourself and source.
And be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I wanted to bring up, which I uh, feel is really important. I think, was it you in class or? Yeah, I think it was you. So you remember in the old days, I mean, I've done Kundalini yoga for maybe 36, 7 years. I mean, I was doing it when Yogi Bhajan was still alive and he used to come, for White Tantra.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but um, I remember that we had to like do certain exercises for 11 minutes. And I remember you mentioning
Yeah,
now they're saying that you don't have to do it for that length of time. So the reason is that, again, going back to source energy, source light, the energy is not that dense. It's not that dark anymore. It's getting lighter and lighter. So less work, less repetition is needed. So that,
absolutely. When I actually recently read something on that, and I did share that in class because I found it to be quite interesting. I mean, I thought we were just doing, I mean, I was being guided by spirit not to do long 11 minutes, arms up and fingers moving like this or whatever. But
right.
I thought it was because they didn't, because we were getting older and that would really, I don't want to hurt people and make them not come back. When you're younger, you definitely recover a lot faster from things. But now it's because we don't need to do that. The energy is less dense now and we don't have to push ourselves that way.
Well,
Yeah.
Anya, it's a pleasure, and I can't wait to start reading your book. Please,
Oh, thank
it's
you.
my honor to,
All right, I will
in
get you.
any way that I can help, I'm here. Um,
Thank you.
as I've already published a book, so I've gone through the arduous steps. Um, so any last golden nuggets that you would like to share with our audience?
I would just say, be patient with yourself, love yourself.
That's a biggie. Love yourself.
Yeah, just love and have patience with yourself, and take a look at your daily life and how you're living your life, and see if it's really alignment with your who you are and who you want to be.
Yeah. And I would add to that, nourish yourself in any
Right.
possible way. And the
Exactly.
important thing is by loving yourself. Once you love yourself, then you have the ability to give to others, to love others. So that is a biggie. Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you, Anya. I'm looking forward to
Oh,
maybe having an interview once you've published your book.
oh, thank you so much. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for having me here
Yeah.
and
Satnam. Thank you.
Satnam.
Okay. Thank
Satnam.
you.
Thank you.
And again, for everybody, if you do enjoy our content, please share with family and friends. And my website is firoze.com. Very simple, firoze.com. We are on Rumble and YouTube, also shorts on Instagram. Show us our love. Please share with friends and family. And the important thing is like, comment as well. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you very soon. God bless.